former President Donald Trump has won the 2024 presidential election.
Yeah, right now, Trump leads with 51% of the vote overall. To Vice President Kamala Harris is 47%. He addressed his supporters in Florida early this morning.
For us will not be easy, but I will bring every ounce of energy, spirit, and fight that I have in my soul to the job that you've entrusted to me.
It was about 2:30 in the morning. The Harris campaign announced that the vice president won't speak until later today. So let's talk about that right now.
All right, with us this morning, Tara Dowdell, Democratic Communications Consultant and President of Tara Dowdell Group. Nice to have you back, Tara.
Mouthful.
And Chapin Fay, Republican strategist and founder of Lighthouse Public Affairs. Chapin, nice to have you back. All right, Tara, what went wrong? Everybody thought it was going to be a much closer election.
Yes, that is true. Most people did think that. The polls actually were kind of all over the place and swinging back and forth between the two. But I would say this. I think that for Vice President Kamala Harris, she had a lot of headwinds. I think, number one, she was treated like an incumbent, which for her was a really bad position to be in because the vice president really doesn't have that much power, right? It is not a position that is vested with a lot of power historically, nor when she served in with her serving. I think the other issue was, and Chapin has pointed this out, that there wasn't, and a lot of people pointed this out, but there wasn't a lot of time to set up a campaign, right? To get things up and going, to introduce herself, because again, as the vice president, the expectation of your role is that you are second fiddle. You are there to support the president and to make the president look good. And that's the job of the vice president.
Yeah, but she also lied. She lied that President Biden was healthy. I think that was a problem. And
well, I think both these candidates lied. Let's not go down that path.
But, you know, but they took out a president in the middle of a campaign.
But then everybody was complaining they didn't take him out before.
Right.
So you can't have it both ways. But the one thing I will, I'm sorry, I don't.
No, but
this is not for us to argue. This is for them to have a discussion.
We'll ask you guys questions.
The point is, why didn't they then, if they believe that, okay, she was held as an incumbent and she didn't separate herself from Biden, why didn't they do that earlier? Why is that after the fact that they're looking back and saying that?
Well, listen, she just did not have enough time. It was 107 days, right? No matter what she was or wasn't before the day she became the candidate, people don't know who the vice president is in America, or if they know the name, they're not sure where they're from, what their background is, and she needed to introduce herself to voters, her biography, her background, her issues profile, and distance herself from the incumbent. And there's just not enough time on 107 days. But I will say, I don't think if she had more time, she would have won. If she were running against any other Republican except for Donald Trump, we'd be having a conversation about how she was a weak candidate.
Why?
She's a weak candidate. Did you watch her answer these questions? Word salad is now a thing that people say. At the end of the campaign, you have Mark Cuban, calling Republican women not smart. You have Joe Biden calling it garbage. You have Kamala Harris and the Democrats, quite frankly, for 10 years calling fellow Americans Nazis and Hitler. And I think this was a rejection of that. Now, of course, Donald Trump engages in the same thing. But for whatever reason, it doesn't matter to his supporters, right? And so when and I think I would sum this up as, I think the Democrats often have a bad habit of running. They didn't run against Trump. They run against people who vote for Trump. They don't have a respect for the American voter.
Is that why they can't be polled? They're afraid to say they are a Trump supporter.
Oh no, people. I think nowadays people are very they wear the Trump, they wear the MAGA red hat. I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah.
I think nowadays people are proud and loud to be Trump supporters. I have to push back on some things that Chapin is saying because if you're a Democrat, dividing the country is not your benefit. Democrats win with a multiracial coalition. Democrats literally did not win this time because they did not hold that multiracial coalition. What happens is it's in the interest of Republicans to be divisive because their coalition is overwhelmingly white, with the exception of this time where there was slippages of particularly Latino voters. For Democrats, you have to have a unifying message, which is what was Kamala's message throughout the campaign. So I actually disagree. I think she ran a good campaign. I think she was, at the end of the day, inflation hit people really hard. And people don't care that we did better than the rest of the world, which is true. And I think people will look back and say Biden was a good president. And I will stand by that, and I will stand on this today. But I do think that the inflation issue, at the end of the day, she was treated as an incumbent no matter whether or not she was the president.
You were shaking your head in agreement there, particularly with the inflation point.
Oh, well, I was shaking my head in a disagreement at the beginning. Yes, and what I will say about that is, again, just to underline a point here, when Republicans are accused of fear-mongering, it's about issues. It's about immigration. It's about the economy. When the Democrats fear-monger, it's about people. It's about identities and people, right? You can hear how they talk. And Donald Trump increased his margins. I think you're going to see certainly with Hispanic voters across America. He flipped a county in Texas that's 96% Latino. So to call this about race or anything like that, I think that's what voters rejected last night. I think the back and forth on those issues, while people think they're suffering, right, or feel that they're suffering, that's that was rejected, right? I think if at the end of the campaign you hadn't had this stream of millionaire celebrities coming out disparaging women, I think there might have been a different result.
One. It was Mark Cuban and Elon Musk, who on the other side there's a litany of barrage of insults labeled at other Americans, and he's not even from here.
Listen, there was a lot of name calling on both sides.
Sure.
But I guess the celebrities didn't work. I mean, they brought out Oprah at the last minute, and I thought, oh boy, are we going to have another Fetterman situation here? But
well, no, you have to pull out. Look, the goal of a campaign is to win. You pull out anything that is to your advantage. If that's Oprah, if it's
I know, but do you think celebrities really count anymore? Because Trump really didn't have a handful.
Well, again, it's more complicated than that. Like, everyone loves Oprah. Oprah's a great surrogate. She knows how to talk. She knows how to relate to people.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban, Cardi B, whose past is drugging men in a...
J-Lo was getting a lot of blowback too. They were like, well, you're speaking out about this. Did you talk about Diddy?
She shed tears in that speech, and she dated P. Diddy.
I think people don't listen to... Celebrities aren't going to change your opinion if you can't pay your grocery bill.
That's right.
You don't really care about what a celebrity has to say.
You're right.
But it's worse than that. I think it backfires, right? You see a celebrity out there, right? It's worse than that. It hurts.
So I want to talk about some of these House races here locally. We saw, particularly, I'm looking here at Nick Lodota wound up winning comfortably over John Avalon. That was one that people thought would be close. And then the upset was Laura Gillen beating D'Esposito out there on Long Island. Were you surprised? You said yesterday you thought that maybe there would be a couple Democratic seats or Democrats that flip seats.
I thought there was going to be
House.
one. I underestimated a little bit. The D'Esposito race, I don't think it was a huge surprise that it was close. The last poll, he was down 12, which I think was a little...
What did him in? What do you think did him in?
That's the district I grew up in. It is a purple, leaning blue district, right? It was represented by a Democrat for many, many years when I was growing up, and it has been very difficult for Republicans recently. It really is I think it represents what the numbers wound up being, right? I think it's less than a point currently.
Yeah,
I think that's the real issue. So, yeah. And again, I think I said this yesterday, right? Congressional races are interesting. They're federal. You have to talk about Trump and Harris and the federal issues, but really they're local races, right? And that district on the local level is very split.
I think we're ignoring the elephant in the room. He had an affair, and then he put the person he had an affair with on payroll, as well as her daughter. So I think that's what did him in. I think that's something the trend I've seen. A lot of Republicans think they can get away with what Trump has done. Trump is held to a special standard, right? That if things that he does and has done are acceptable within the party.
President Biden and his son Hunter. I mean, let's talk about
all the
politicians.
Yeah, but with D'Esposito,
if you're going to, focus on one person, focus about all of the
Clinton and his affairs.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
But my point is that D'Esposito, the voters rejected that, right? Because he is an incumbent. It is typically with Trump having the red wave that he had, right? With this, then he should have been lifted by that. But this scandal and all the other parts of the scandal too, with the booze and all the things, the expenses, all those things, I think are what.
Real quick, what happened with Mike Lawler and Mondale Jones? Because that one had more money dumped in it nationally than just about any campaign in the country.
Mike Lawler is a phenomenal elected official. He's a good candidate. He's a good campaigner. He had some hiccups and some things at the end, but he has done incredible work in the district. Again, it's a local race, right? He has made friends and built a coalition. He is one of the best members in New York and maybe nationally. I can't speak to that, but he's a moderate. He reflects the district. He represents the district. He stays close to the district, and I think that's why you saw him in particular having a very good night last night.
Interesting. Now we need to come together and do kumbaya. Tara Dowdell, thank you so much. Chapin Fay, appreciate your perspective this morning.
Thanks for coming in, both of you, always.